There is a strange pattern in nature that almost feels like a hidden rule. If you look at the largest animals in Earth's history, something immediately stands out. They don't appear randomly, they only show up in a very specific version of the planet. Today, even the largest land animals we have, like elephants, feel massive, but compared to prehistoric giants, they are almost small, and not just slightly smaller. We're talking about animals that could weigh 10 times more, move through forests like living buildings, and cast shadows that could cover entire groups of modern animals. So the question now is not just what dinosaurs were, but something far more interesting. What kind of world allows something like that to even exist in the first place? To understand that, we need to travel back more than 200 million years to a version of Earth that would feel alien in almost every way. No humans, no modern countries, no familiar ecosystems, just a world still recovering from extinction and chaos, and slowly reorganizing into something completely new. This is the world of the Mesozoic era, but even that label hides how different it truly was, because Earth back then was not just a little warmer or greener, it was operating under completely different environmental rules. One of the biggest differences was the temperature. During large parts of the dinosaur age, Earth had no permanent polar ice caps. This means no massive frozen water storage at the poles, and no extreme zones like we have today. Instead, the entire planet was much more evenly warm. From equator to poles, temperatures were slightly higher than modern averages. This matters more than it seems at first, because temperature stability changes everything in biology. Modern animals spend enormous amounts of energy to survive seasonal extremes, freezing winters, hot summers, but in a warmer global system, life does not need to pause every year. Growth continues for longer periods, plants grow for longer seasons, and herbivores have more consistent access to food. And when herbivores thrive consistently, predators eventually scale up to match them, and this is one of the first quiet steps towards giantism. But it's not the only one. If you looked at Earth during the early dinosaur era, you would barely recognize it. Most of the land was joined into a massive supercontinent called Pangaea. Imagine all modern countries fused into a single enormous landmass. No Atlantic Ocean separating Africa and South America, no isolated Australia drifting alone, just one continuous world of land. This created something extremely important for evolution. Huge open ecosystems with fewer barriers. Animals could spread across vast regions without being cut off by oceans. And when ecosystems are connected like this, competition becomes global. Species don't just evolve locally, they evolve under continental pressure. And in their massive open environments, size become a major advantage. Bigger animals can travel longer distances, store more energy, and survive harsher periods of scarcity. And most importantly, there's a direct biological principle at work here. In open environments, there are less hiding, less forest density in many regions, and less escape cover. So instead of agility or camouflage, size and strength become dominant survival strategies. And once evolution starts favorizing size, it tends to escalate over time. But even this is not enough to explain the absolute extremes, because there is one more ingredient, something inside the dinosaur themselves that modern animals simply do not have in the same way. Dinosaurs were not just large reptiles, they were biologically unusual in a very specific way. Many of them had extremely efficient respiratory systems, closer to birds than modern reptiles. Instead of simple lungs like crocodiles and lizards, air likely flowed through their body in a one-way system. This is important because it massively increases oxygen efficiency, meaning more energy extracted from every breath. And more energy means more biological potential for growth. But there is another hidden advantage. Many dinosaurs had hollow or air-pocketed bones. This might sound like a weakness, but in reality, it is an engineering breakthrough. It reduces weight while keeping structural strength. Imagine replacing solid concrete beams with hollow steel frameworks. You keep strength, but massively reduces mass. This allows animals to grow far larger without collapsing under their own weight. And this is where dinosaurs break away from modern mammals, because mammals rely on dense bones and heavy muscle structures, which quickly creates weight limits. But dinosaurs had a larger framework supporting much larger bodies, and that changes everything about how big they can become. But we are still missing the final ingredient, because even perfect biology cannot create giants without environmental pressure. So what was pushing them upwards again and again? It was something happening in the ecosystem itself, something slow but extremely powerful. Once dinosaurs appeared, ecosystems entered a long-term evolutionary cycle. Herbivores grew larger to avoid predators, predators grew larger to hunt herbivores, and both sides kept escalating over millions of years. This is called an evolutionary arms race, but in dinosaur ecosystems, it lasted far longer than usual, because there was no sudden disruption resetting the system, no humans, no large-scale ecological collapse caused by single intelligent species. This meant ecosystems had stability, and stability is extremely important for giantism, because size evolution is slow. It takes millions of years to develop extreme body plans, and if ecosystems kept collapsing, that process resets. But during the Mesozoic, that system kept running long enough for evolution to experiment again and again and again, until something extraordinary happened. Some lineages pushed size beyond anything seen before, and the most extreme example of this process would appear in the giant sauropods, animals that would eventually become the largest land creatures in Earth's history. How did they actually reach that point? That is where the next part begins, because once dinosaurs crossed a certain threshold, there was no turning back. By the time dinosaurs was fully established across Earth, something very unusual started to happen. They didn't just get a little bigger over time, they began to scale into sizes that by modern biological standards should not really work. And yet they did. To understand how, we need to stop thinking about dinosaurs as just big reptiles, because biologically, they are operating under a completely different set of rules. Land animals have a very strict size limit. A blue whale can grow massive in the ocean, but on land, things are far more constrained. For a land animal, the problem is simple. Gravity never changes. As size increases, weight increases faster than strength. This creates a brutal scaling problem. If you double the size of an animal, its weight increases by roughly 8 times. This means bones, muscles, and organs must scale in a way that eventually becomes inefficient. At a certain point, the body simply cannot support itself. This is why elephants are basically the upper limit of land mammals. They're already operating their structural maximum efficiency. But dinosaurs somehow pushed far beyond this limit. So what was different? The answer is not one thing, it is a combination of biological upgrades that stack together. If there's one group that defines dinosaur giantism, it is the sauropods, like long-necked giants like Diplodocus and Brachiosaurus. These animals weren't just large, they were extreme by even dinosaur standards. Some stretched longer than a basketball court. Others stood tall enough to look into modern 4-story buildings. But what made them possible? The first key is something really simple. They reduced weight wherever possible without losing strength. This made their skeleton incredibly light compared to their size, but still strong enough to support the enormous mass. And this is crucial, because reducing weight is just as powerful as increasing strength. In evolution, sometimes being lighter is equal to being bigger. Another major challenge for giant animals is energy. A huge body needs enormous amounts of food, and that food must be constantly available. This is where dinosaur ecosystems play a critical role. During large parts of the Mesozoic, plant life was extremely abundant. Vast forests of conifers, cycads, and ferns covered large regions of land, and importantly, vegetation grew continuously in many areas. Without strong seasonal collapse like today's climate, this means herbivores had more stable access to food year-round, and stability changes everything in evolution, because when food is predictable, animals can afford to grow larger bodies without the risk of starvation during harsh seasons. But sauropods didn't just rely on availability, they evolved a feeding strategy that maximized efficiency. Their long necks allow them to feed across huge areas without moving their bodies. Imagine standing in one place and being able to harvest food from an entire field around you. That reduced energy costs dramatically, and energy saved is energy that can be converted into growth over millions of years. This created a feedback loop. Bigger body, more efficient feeding, more energy, and then an even bigger body. Another key factor is how dinosaurs actually grew. Modern reptiles grow slowly and often stop early. Mammals grow quickly, but stop relatively early in life. Dinosaurs appear to have done something different. Many likely grew quickly during early stages of life, but continued to grow for much longer periods. This is extremely important, because even a small annual growth advantage compounds massively over decades. If an animal grows even slightly longer than its competitors, it can end up dramatically larger over time. This means dinosaur giantism was not just about being built big, it was about having more time to become big, and time is one of the most powerful forces in evolution. Around 66 million years ago, everything that dinosaurs had built for more than 150 million years came to an abrupt and catastrophic end. A massive asteroid impact struck Earth near what is now Yucatan Peninsula, triggering a global chain reaction of destruction. Fires spread across continents, dust and debris blocked sunlight, temperatures dropped rapidly, and photosynthesis collapsed collapsed, which meant food chains collapsed with it. And in this new world, size became a disadvantage instead of an advantage, because large animals need more food, and food became limited almost instantly. This is why non-avian dinosaurs disappeared, while smaller organisms survived. Survival suddenly favored small bodies, fast reproduction, and low energy requirements. And the age of the giants ended, not gradually, but almost overnight in geological terms. By the late Jurassic and into the Cretaceous period, dinosaurs were no longer just large animals evolving in the background of Earth. They had become the dominant expression of what land life could physically become. This was the peak, the point where evolution briefly pushed body size into its absolute limit, and then stopped forever.